Hey guys, and welcome back to Hoosier Hardware, and today we're taking a look at a sub $500 gaming PC that I gave away a while back, and now it's back to me. So we're gonna take a look at this thing, and this is exactly the glamorous look of a sub $500 gaming PC here in 2021, but all that comes right after a word from today's video sponsor, and that is the Coldest water, which is a fantastic water bottle. It comes in lots of different sizes, different colors. There are links below for a running giveaway, the actual bottles themselves, and of course a discount code all in the description down below. So go down there and check out the Coldest water. Fantastic water bottles. Now, as I get launched into describing this exact PC, I will mention that links are in the description down below for different eBay searches, Amazon listings, EVGA B stock, all those things I'm going to talk about in this video are down below. And while you're down there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button just to, support the channel. But regardless, this is obviously a Dell Optiplex gaming PC. Gaming PC is being thrown around very loosely in this video, though this is the Optiplex 7010. Now, this particular model features an Ivy Bridge processor. That would be the i5 3470, that's 4 cores and 4 threads, and that CPU, by the way, launched all the way back in June of 2012. So this CPU that we're running on today is 9 years old, or just shy of 9 years old as of filming. It does feature 8 gigabytes of DDR3 memory. The PC itself originally came with a hard drive, which has been since upgraded to an SSD, or rather, the main storage has been upgraded to an SSD, and the GPU in this system is a GTX 1060. This thing came out back in 2016, and it was sort of an enigma back then because that 3 gigabyte VRAM buffer was half of the upgraded 1060 6 gig version, but that wasn't the only difference between the 3 gig and 6 gig 1060s. The 3 gigabyte GPU is actually a little bit cut down from the 6 gigabyte 1060 GPU as well. So it's not like you're just giving up those 3 gigs of VRAM, you're actually giving up a little bit more by dropping from the 6 gig 1060 down to the 3 gig 1060. Now, these old Dell Optiplex systems rarely come with a power supply that's worth anything, so I do want to go through the cost of getting this PC into the state that it currently is. First and foremost, the tower. The base tower itself is going to run you around $100 if you're looking for one of these systems today. And the couple of things that I would encourage you to look for if you're trying to find an Optiplex to convert into a gaming PC, first and foremost, actually try to look for one with an i7 processor, though those will run a little bit more expensive. But if you absolutely are looking for the barest of minimums to get up and running, find one with 8 gigabytes of RAM already installed, and you may find them with motherboards with only 2 DIMM slots, in which case it's going to be tough to upgrade that 8 gigs. But if you're lucky, try to find one that has 4 DIMM slots on the motherboard, like the 7010 variants, so that you can actually add in more RAM later on. This particular one obviously has 8 gigabytes of RAM. It came with an i5 processor. At this point, I would highly recommend avoiding any of these Optiplexes with i3 processors, because frankly, you're not saving very much money on those, and there's really not many games anymore that are only taking advantage of 2 cores and 4 threads. At least with 4 physical cores, you're getting a better deal. Though obviously, like I said, the i7s are the way to go if all else is equal, and if you're not paying an arm and a leg extra to get an i7, then if you find an Optiplex with an i7, that's the one to go for. But regardless, the tower itself is about $100. Then you're gonna need to upgrade the power supply in most cases, though not all cases. Now, the power supply in this system is actually a Dell OEM power supply that did have a 6-pin PCIe power connector on it, and I picked that power supply up for about $20 used on eBay. Though right now, power supplies are actually reasonably priced, especially if you're looking over at EVGA's B stock website. You can find really solid power supplies that you could actually carry forward into future custom builds for $30 to $40 right now. So that would be the direction I would actually recommend going, because you're going to get a quality power supply with full warranty support from EVGA, and it's not costing much more than something like an OEM model off of eBay. Now, I did mention the storage upgrade. The SSD has been upgraded to a 480 gigabyte SSD, and that's going to run you right around $50, give or take, and I'll link one down below. to Amazon that's just a generally solid sort of commodity class SSD that'll get you up and running. And then the GTX 1060, that's where over half of the budget is going right now, which is insane to think about. But right now, if you're looking at eBay, you're going to expect to pay $275-ish, give or take, for a 1060 3GB version. And if you're someone from the future watching this video, hopefully you're laughing at that price, and hopefully that price is back below $100. But right now with the GPU shortage, you're paying a premium for a GPU. The 1060 3GB version, you may be able to find one at your local marketplaces, whether you're talking about Facebook, Craigslist, or something like that. Those are where the really good deals are going to be. But if you're just looking at something you can go and buy today off of an online e-tailer, then eBay, $275 is probably about what you're going to expect to pay. And by the way, that GTX 1060 can run quite loud if you get these single fan versions. So if you have the option, I would highly recommend going with a double fan version of this particular GPU, because as you're about to hear, the single fan versions can get quite loud under load. So all in, if you're not getting fantastic deals on the components, you're looking at about $465, and that's before any sort of tax or shipping comes into play. So you may be right up against that $500 pricing by the time you're done putting this system together. But now it's time to take a look at just how well these systems game. And to do that, we're just going to take a look at a few bits of gameplay from some popular esports titles and then a AAA title. We're going to look at Fortnite at 1080p, Overwatch at 1080p, and then just for kicks, I'm going to throw in Cyberpunk 2077 to see how modern AAA demanding titles are going to treat a configuration like this. So Fortnite at 1080p on the low preset actually did surprise me, because it was a very, very playable and actually a good experience with this particular system. Now, you will expect, just like most configurations with Fortnite, to see some stuttering when you're in the sort of arena loading in screen area where all the players are just jumping around at one time. But once you actually get into the game, after a few skips and stutters when you first land, things do smooth out quite a bit, to the point where Fortnite was absolutely a playable experience. And as far as balancing of this system goes, it looks like the CPU, at least in Fortnite, is slightly the bottleneck here compared to the GTX 1060, though with both usage percentages pretty high. It looks like the 1060 3GB card paired with a 3470, at least in Fortnite, actually seems to be a pretty good pairing, because there's no huge bottleneck compared to the other major components. Yes, the CPU is getting hit a little bit harder, but it's not a ton harder, so I don't know that you would call that a major bottleneck. These two do seem to be a pretty good pairing. Now, Overwatch is a title I really like working with some of these older hardware configurations, because even though the CPU is basically slammed at 100% all the time, and the fighting is very intense in this game, you don't really see a lot of skips and stutters with this configuration. So once again, at 1080p on the high preset here, you have a very playable experience. In fact, a very enjoyable one where you would actually forget the hardware that you're playing on, and you could just get into this game and enjoy what you're doing with this title. Though it is worth noting, once in a great while, you will definitely see a skip or a stutter, and that's not really all that unexpected, considering that the CPU is being slammed at 100%. And I would caution you with this hardware configuration, if you have a lot of background processes going on that's going to be hitting your CPU, then you might see more skips and stutters with these titles, because the CPU is already being pushed to its limit. Anything going on in the background is going to just make that gaming experience a little bit worse. So I would definitely recommend limiting any of your background processes, whether that's listening to music and Chrome tabs or just generally having a web browser with a ton of tabs open. I would try to limit all of that down to just gaming on this system to get the best possible experience. And finally, that brings us to Cyberpunk 2077 on the low preset at 1080p, and to be honest, this actually performed better than I was expecting, in that when you're not driving around and going through different areas very quickly, it's actually a little bit of a playable experience. We're seeing frame rates here in the 30s and low 40s a lot of the time when it's just you walking around. Now, when you hop into a vehicle and you start traveling very rapidly, that's when the frame rates really start to dip in this title. Now, it's not a good looking game on the low preset. In fact, I think it looks pretty bad, but I am also very spoiled since my main system at this point has about the best gaming hardware available. But if you're just looking to possibly get up and running on some AAA titles, then actually a 3470 paired with a 1063 gig card does seem to be capable of giving you playable frame rates even if they are at ugly settings at 1080p. So I suppose now I should give you some conclusions, thoughts, or whatever about this particular configuration, and I don't recommend it, and I'll put a big sort of asterisk with that, in that if your price, the budget that you can pay right now, is exactly $500 or less, then this would probably be the way to go, because it will get you up and running very quickly and at a cheap cost. And it is worth noting there are some components, especially when it comes to the upgrades, that you can carry forward into a better build down the road. For instance, if you're getting a B-stock power supply that's like 500 or 600 watts, you could absolutely carry that into a future build. The SSD is something that you would absolutely want to carry forward into a future build, because that's going to save you money there down the road. But everything else with the system outside of the GPU is basically gonna be e-waste once you're done with it. So it's not really something I would recommend, especially considering you can still build a base platform at reasonable pricing. Because keep in mind, the biggest thing that has jumped up in cost so far in the past 6 months to a year has been the GPU increase in price, and that just comes down to there's no GPUs available. Now, RAM costs are definitely going back up a little bit, so that is something to consider. But if you are stuck on that $500 or less budget and you really just want to get up and running in gaming, since there's no telling when the GPU market's going to come back to earth, this is not a terrible way to do it. Just understand, when that GPU market does eventually fall back to earth, you're going to lose a bunch of money on your GPU purchase, because this card at $275, once the market cools back off, it'll likely be going for under $100 on the used market on places like eBay, because all the miners will be selling off all of the cards that they have. And then also, as the GPU market catches itself back up on the new side of things, the used market's just going to be a mess for people that paid a big price premium for their current GPUs. So if you're okay with taking a big loss down the road on the GPU, then sure, it actually does a decent job. If you're looking for more AAA titles, you may look at a slightly stronger GPU, which obviously is going to cost you a little bit more, and you will definitely want to look at the i7s or a Xeon with 4 cores and 8 threads to replace the i5 3470. But if you're just looking at esports titles and you just want to get up and running and playing, this will do that, and it'll actually do it and give you a pretty good experience while it's at it. But of course, those are just my thoughts on this rig. Obviously, like I said, it came back to me after it was given away a while back, and I just wanted to take a look at it here in 2021 and see how it's holding up. And to be honest, I was, for the most part, pleasantly surprised, but I do want to hear from you guys. What do you think about building a sub $500 gaming PC here in 2021 using this type of method? Let me know in those comments down below if you've done something similar to this, or if you've just gotten some really good deals and gone it alone and built a custom system for roughly the same cost. And if that's the case, definitely let us know what components you have so we can all be jealous of you. But otherwise, if you like the video, give it a like, share, subscribe, and comment. All those things are very helpful for the channel. You can follow me both on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.